Hello YouTube, and welcome to Shawn's Fish Room. On today's video, I'm going to talk about the element of surprise. And that's not always a good thing in a fish room. When you have so many tanks set up, there's bound to be issues from time to time, and most times it's preventative, and sometimes it's not. So here's what we've got. Came home from lunch today, and this tank had leaked down. You can see the black marks on the tank. Those were about where the water level was at whenever I came home for lunch. I didn't notice it. My wife actually did. She was trying to find me. I was out in the garage trying to find something for work. She came in here trying to find me, and I heard her come outside saying that there's water all over the floor. So I came out and looked, and of course it has to be the Catachromis ivory head lupingus that I've got, the albinos. Beautiful fish, and luckily I was able to catch it before they were laying here, because you can see how much water is left in the tank from leaking down. Not much, but a hard time surviving. So right now I have them stuck in a 20-gallon tank, just temporarily. I don't like having big fish stuck in small tanks, so I'm going to make sure and get this fixed as quick as I can, and I'm going to show you how I intend to fix the tank. Alright, so the first order of business, of course, is going to be to get the tank cleaned out. So the first thing I have to do is get all the rocks and sand out of the tank, get the tank off the rack. Right now it's roughly about 5 feet in the air. The top's about 7 foot, so I definitely can't work on it up that high. So let's go ahead and get it down and start cleaning it out. Okay guys, I've now got the tank down off the stand. You can see it sits up here. And the issue is, this is an old tank that blew a seal late last year, and I was in a hurry to reseal it, so I didn't do a very good job. And the reason I didn't do a very good job is because the bottom trim was siliconed down so heavily, I was afraid to take it apart. So I knew it was be a pain in the butt, and I had a pair of really nice wild Mabenji that I needed to get back into the tank because they were being beat up in another tank while I was trying to fix it, so I kind of half-assed that job. So now I've got to do it right. So what I'm going to do is come in here and take this bottom trim off, pull the bottom pane of glass out, get it all cleaned up, re-silicone it, and that'll fix it. I should have fixed it right the first time. I was just in a hurry and kind of panicked because my fish were getting beat up, and you know, it's something we don't want to happen. And sometimes you're better off just to take time and do it right than have to do it twice. So again, what I have to do is take the black trim off, get this all taken off. It'll take razor blades and scrapers and stuff to get the silicone cut loose. That'll pull off. Then you take another razor blade and just cut the bottom pane off. Clean that silicone up, make sure there's no residue on it at all. Get it completely clean all the way around the bottom seal. And then just reseal that part of it. So that'll be the next step, and I'll let you see that when I get it off. Doing these videos by yourself makes it kind of hard to do like in progress shots, just for the fact that I don't have a really good way to hold the camera or set it up and have you guys watch me. Plus, it's not a lot of fun to have people watch you struggle to get these bottom trims off. So I'll catch back up with you once I get the trim off. Alright guys, we're back. The bottom came off actually a lot easier than I expected it to. I got a nice sharp knife that I use. Just a regular, kind of like a paring knife, I guess. Pretty thin blade. And I was able to stick it around the edge of the tank, around the edges underneath here, and cut the bottoms loose all the way around. And then I went underneath the side and did the same thing, and cut that loose. And was able to get the bottom off with no problem. It's not busted, so it's definitely don't have to worry about replacing that, so that's good. Now the next step is going to be to get the glass off. Now this you have to be a lot more careful with, because if I break the glass, I'll have to replace the glass, and I don't want to replace it. It's not a big deal. Usually it's about a $30 piece of glass, if that. So that's not really the problem. I just don't want to have to spend any more money on the tank than what is needed. And the reason this tank blew a seal in the first place was the fact that when they first made it, they didn't get enough glass or enough silicone between the panes of glass. And you can see the glass flexing, and I noticed that whenever it failed the first time. Sadly, I didn't notice until I sealed it back together. When I was siliconing it, I was like, well, At that point, it's almost too late. I probably should have just cleaned it all out and started over, but I didn't. So here I am now fixing it. So let's go ahead and get the top, this part of the glass cleaned off. I'll take a razor blade scraper and scrape off all this old silicone on the outside that was holding the trim on. I'll get it cleaned up, then I'll come in here and have to cut between the two panes of glass to release the silicone between them. Then once that's done, I'll have to clean that silicone off and put the tank back together once everything is cleaned with no silicone residue on it at all. Wipe it off with alcohol and then use the right silicone. And I'll show you what silicone to use when we get to that step. So let me go ahead and get the glass taken off and then we'll go to the next step. Found the culprit, which I knew what it was already. I figured I'd show you guys. When I was cleaning the silicone off, as you can see how that's showing water in between it. So that seal was blown out. That's where the water is getting out at. So it looks like it's gonna be pretty easy to get this glass off. I'll be able to cut it between that right there and work my way around. So I don't have any real. I'm not scared of breaking the glass anymore. I think it should come off pretty easy. Like I said, this is something that it came from Acreon that way. There wasn't enough silicone between the panes of glass to hold them together. Then the seal on the inside could only hold it together for so long before it finally stretches out enough that it lets loose. So now that I know that for sure, I can go back and get this thing cleaned up and back together. Alright guys, now I got the bottom glass off. Like I said, it wasn't too bad since I had that seal that was already going out. I was able to get just a single edged razor blade in there, start cutting it. I took my same knife I used earlier, kind of stuck it in the gap just to open it up just a little bit. Now I cut back a little bit, moved the knife down a little bit, kind of back and forth, coming down and around. So I got to an edge, went up and around that way, then down to this side till I got to the edge. And then just slowly worked my way across there so I didn't break the glass. I was able to get the glass out. No cracks, no chips, no nothing. Took about 15 minutes, nothing real terrible. Just trying to be careful more than anything. So now I've got to try and get the glass clean, get the tank cleaned out, get around all these edges, get all this old silicone cleaned out. All this stuff around here has got to get taken out, cleaned up. Got to get this top edge nice and clean. As you can see, I mean, there's nothing on it. You know, it just doesn't look like it had hardly any silicone there. And the only thing that really held it together was the seam on the inside, and that's not going to work very good. So what we'll have to do is get it cleaned up and get some. I got silicone here already. It's GE type 1, 100% silicone. There's no mold inhibitors in it. That's usually bad for fish from what I've been told, so I've never used it, and I've always had really good luck with the GE type 1, 100%. And I'll show you that here in a minute when I find it. I'm going to get this glass cleaned off, and then we'll start trying to get this tank back together. And here we are. I had my brother Lance come over to help me tonight to get the glass put back in. It's kind of hard to video it while we did it. But all we did was get the glass clean on the inside and the outside really well. I went over for probably 30 minutes to make sure it was clean. There was no residue at all on any of the edges. Real pain in the butt, but it's worth it in the end. You can see where I've got the bottom taped on. It's just sitting in the trim for now. I'll take it off tomorrow and actually silicone the trim to the bottom. That way it'll help kind of hold the glass in place once it's set where it goes. I think it's kind of why they did it from the factory, but also to help hold it on as well, of course. But anyway, so that's basically how you have to fix a tank that's leaking. Sometimes if it's bad enough, you can cut the sides out. I made sure to angle the bottom corners enough that when I siliconed it back together, that there was a good penetration for silicone to get in the corners. So you can see the silicone is, run up on it. The silicone doesn't really stick to silicone very well, but in all those corners are in really good shape. You can kind of see the silicone on the inside there. I did try to do a really good job to get it nice and smooth without making a mess of it. And that can be hard sometimes. So that's it. So now I'll let the tank dry. Like I said, again tomorrow I'll get the trim put on it. The one thing I did do that I didn't mention, whenever I did find out the tank was leaking, in order not to kill off the bacteria for the sponges in the tanks, I set the sponges in another tank just to keep them wet. That way the bacteria doesn't die off. I'll give this tank 24 hours to dry, and then once it's dry, I will set it back up on the stand and get it set back up. I may wait a couple days. I'll have to keep it on the fish. If the fish seems to get stressed out, I'll make sure and do it sooner. Because that's the main thing. They're not very easily found fish, so something I want to make sure and take care of. They seem to be doing okay in the smaller tank for right now. They're just kind of hanging out. Not really doing nothing. This guy's turned really black while he's been in there. The video's not really showing it much, but he's like, I want my house back. Alright guys, that's it for tonight's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Having a fish room, you had to be prepared for things to happen, because it's going to happen. It will happen. So being able to take care of it's a big deal sometimes. But got lucky tonight with just having a leak and able to fix the tank. I've had experience building tanks before, so luckily I had the experience to be able to do that without being too worried or concerned. It took about 2.5 hours altogether to do it, between cleaning it, getting it apart, waiting for my brother to show up, stuff like that. And I think it went pretty good. It wasn't a major ordeal, but we're done with it. So here in a few days, we'll let the silicone dry. We'll get the tank set back up. I'll try and do a follow-up video and let you guys see how it worked out. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification button. That all helps me out. I'm still getting going on this channel, so all that helps for sure. I have a question for you guys. What do you like to listen to when you're out in the fish room? I like to listen to hard rock, heavy metal, rap, hip hop, gangster rap, stuff like that. Stuff keeps me going. So most of the time my wife is knocking on the door, the windows, the wall, telling me to keep it down, and it makes for a good time out here. So, but anyway, thank you guys again, and we'll catch you on the next video.